Welcome to your Thriving Heart for Thriving Life Grief Tips. Do you know someone who experienced having to navigate the grief of a looming loss or anticipatory grief? And perhaps this is because their loved one is getting old, and perhaps the person themselves experience something that caused them grief that they know will get worse over time, perhaps been diagnosed with an illness or something. And if you or your loved ones experience this, my heart goes out to you, as I can relate and I can only imagine how you feel. Anticipatory grief, or the grief of the looming loss, unfortunately, is one of the main grief that, number one, it is very common to be under recognized or underappreciated or under acknowledged. In other words, people who has not experienced what you are experiencing sometimes don't even understand why you would be grieving quite intensely, and are not able to relate to you. And so my heart goes out to you. And also, it is one of the type of grief that's oftentimes it's very sensitive, because it's not only about, let's say, somebody who has, not that it is any easier, but it is something that a lot of time you will need to navigate yourself and your loved one at the same time, which making it a little more complex of a navigations than compared to, say, your loved one has passed away and you're navigating your grief. If this is navigating two, three, sometimes dozens of people, if this is a family. And so then what can you do to navigate grief of the looming loss? Within the confine of this video, I will share a few tips that I find many people can most benefit from. And the number one is to know that it is normal and that this come from love. And why do I say this? A lot of people that experience the anticipatory grief feel a sense of guilt. They feel guilty for grieving. And the reasons of this is because many people say it's, oh, I kind of I might almost like foreseeing badness or something like that. So one common example, someone's parents has been diagnosed with an illness, let's say a Parkinson or an Alzheimer, or even cancer, or some other condition, or they just seeing their parents getting older and slower, and or this could be a loved one, it could be even a very dear pet, not that I'm undermining one or the other, but your loved one is been diagnosed by something. And 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 then as they are grieving, they also say, well, I also feel guilty for grieving. They are still here and I'm already grieving the end, and it's almost like I'm trying to curse them or something. You're not trying to curse them, you're not. And sometimes it's like they are, and many people say, well, I don't want to be, I can't be honest. I can't be honest about my grief, because they kind of would think that, what am I, like, waiting for them to die? Of course you don't do that. Yeah, that's not true. And so at the same time, being human, sometimes we have these ideas and feelings and thoughts. And so please know that it is very normal, and it's actually very loving. This grief come because you really love about them and you really care about them. It's not because you are wishing them wishing them badness. This is the other thing that people say. Oh, it's almost like I'm wishing them badness. It's almost like I'm wishing them that it's going to be a long suffering ending or something like that. You're not doing any of those. We know that, and this is something because you love them. And so to acknowledge yourself and to know that it come from you loving them, and that really is all it is about this grief. and also that it's also not an indications of you being broken or weak, because sometimes people who experience anticipatory grief and say, I'm just weak, and I have a tough time navigating this, and perhaps your siblings are feeling differently and doing things differently, and then people say, what's wrong with me? Well, grief is unique for everybody. Your feelings are meant to be unique compared to your siblings or to your significant other or anybody else. And so it's not because you're broken, it's not because you are weak, it's because you love. And every love expressed differently. As such, your experience with love and grief is unique to you. And that's the other thing that many people can benefit in navigating the grief of looming loss or the anticipatory grief, is to do your very best. And this can be easier said, but to do your very best to focus on what can be done and what's still good now, what can be done toward to be able to have a smooth as smooth of a journey as possible, and also to also focus as best as you are able to on what's still good now. We're not doing this in a Pollyanna way. We're not in denial and say we everything just gonna be fine, and or anything like that, or something fairy godmother will show up. We're not doing that. But many people come and say, many people whose loved one has already passed, typically, come to me and say, one thing that I regret when I was going through this is I focused so much on how sad and the possible sad ending, particularly when it is a prolonged illness, where you have time to process and navigate something that lasts for a year or two, or at least quite a few months. Many people said I focused so much on what might happen, on all the bad things that might happen, that I could not be present and enjoy the moment while the person or the individual, the pet, was still there. And this is a very common thing that I have here as both an oncologist, veterinary oncologist, and as a grief coach for people who didn't work with me as while they were going through their anticipatory grief. And so you want to be able to do your very best to focus on the present, on what's still good on the present, and create as good of a time with your loved one, and do your very best to do what you are able to create a smooth journey toward the outcome that, yes, it might not be your number one outcome that you would love, but as smooth of a journey that as you possibly able to, so that you are able to be present. So you're able to be present in the presence and create the best possible experience, moment to moment, day to day. And the other way, another tip that I have for navigating anticipatory grief, for the grief of looming loss, among many, is to also create something that, as time goes by and things change, to practice, to allow yourself practice communicating among each other, and perhaps even do something like, hey, we're just going to touch base every week or every couple of weeks, or whatever that work for you. Because as family navigate anticipatory grief, and anticipatory grief typically involve more than one person. everybody preferences start to change. The persons who might say, this week or this month I would prefer things this way, and then the next month it change. And so to create a consistent communication and check in time with each other on consistent regular basis, such that there is no misunderstanding, and that everybody feel that they are being listened to, and that they are being acknowledged on what it is that they love and would love to see the outcome. And sometimes because when we are emotional, it's much more challenging to think clearly and to think neutrally, in a neutral state, so to say. Sometimes depend on what's going on, it can be very beneficial to have somebody who is a neutral party, so to say, to help communications, to help the family, it involves the whole family, to navigate together and on everything that is going on, because we're human, and when we have a lot of things going on, we can get emotional, and then it's the nature of grief. It makes us to have tough time thinking straight, right? And so create check-in time, and if needed, have a more neutral party to help communicate through those check-in times. And another tip on navigating the grief of the looming loss is to do your best. It is very easy. Human by nature will dramatize everything. That's just our nature. For most human, that is, we think about the worst case scenario, and the reason for this is, of course, to help us with our survival, which is absolutely important. And at the same time, we can get trapped into this worst case scenario. Oh my God, what about this happen, and what about that happen, and so on and so on and so forth. And we don't want to do that. It will, as stated earlier, it will prevent us from being able to be present. Now, we do want to acknowledge our feeling. We're not being in denial on in any case from our feeling. We want to acknowledge our feeling. You want to be able to cry. You want to be able to scream safely without scaring anybody, and you want to be able to really acknowledge and release your feeling in best possible way. One way to quickly calibrate your feelings, by the way, is to shake your head, shake your body, shake your hands, shake your feet safely. But you want to acknowledge your feeling, of course. And at the same time, there is a difference between your feelings and your thoughts. Yes, your thoughts will influence your feelings, but you can all many times, being human, we sitting there and start terrorizing ourselves. We terrorize ourselves on worst possible scenario of this and that and this and that. We want to be prepared, but there is a difference between being prepared and, in the meantime, keep thinking about the worst possible scenario, to the point that we feel horrible and more horrible, and not being able to sometimes even present on the person, and with our loved one whom we are navigating this time through. And also to allow support. Anticipatory grief is a very sensitive situations that involve many players, so to say, many parties, many people involved in many cases, and including the individual who is going through things. And again, not everybody can relate to anticipatory grief. Many well-meaning friends and family member, if they are not specifically trained in anticipatory grief and in communication, so then it can make it even more challenging. So to allow support such that you are able to navigate your grief, and able to be present, and while doing that, you will be able to help your loved one who are also, anticipatory grief typically involves multiple individuals who are also going through the anticipatory grief and having all different type of feelings to be able to navigate such that the experience is as not an unwanted experience that it is, that it could be as smooth as possible. And those are a few tips that I have for navigating grief of the looming loss or anticipatory grief within the confine of this video. And so if you have any questions, please feel welcome to reach out to me. You can email me at drtanforgrief@gmail.com or joyfulriches beyondgrief.com. And of course, if you're comfortable sharing your questions or thoughts on the comment below of this video, you're welcome to do that as well. And if you find any part of this video is beneficial, please subscribe and to the channel and like the video. And this is Dr. BirgitteTan with Joyful Riches Beyond Grief. I care about you very much. Feel welcome to connect with me with any questions, and I look forward to see you again very, very soon. Eh, eh.